Greetings from the Auditore Manor from the archives of the Animus, where your standard Ottoman hook blade is made of two components, the hook and the blade. My name is John from the MTG Thoughtcast, and this is Pack It In, where we're going to open up a booster pack and get as many cards as we can into your commander decks. Today, we have ourselves a very special booster pack, a Universes Beyond Assassin's Creed Collector Booster. So grab your Brotherhood regalia and strap in your hidden blade. It's time to go do some assassination. So here we are with Assassin's Creed. Since this is a bit of a smaller pack, I wanted to just kind of show off. You can see here, this is the big retail box that collector boosters come in at retail stores. And so just because this is a bit of a smaller booster pack, I wanted to kind of fill out some of that time a little bit by showcasing how absurdly wasteful. Although, that little tray is really neat. So, it comes in this, really big envelope with some really nice, foil artwork across on the packaging itself. You don't see this artwork anywhere else. And then your booster is strapped down in here, along with a Please Don't Steal Me tag on the inside. Oh, good lord. Look at that. Look how mangled oh goodness lordy. This is why, if you're purchasing collector boosters, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, I'm doing this for content, this is why you get them from a retailer shop, or not a retailer shop. Don't buy from a retailer shop, get from your card store, support your local game stores. But it's just interesting to show assorted packaging that different outlets go at. I think I've seen before that online retailers as well also sometimes send out collector boosters like this in the in these big box packages as well. So you might have received one of these once before if you have purchased a collector booster on Amazon. We'll try to make these as legible as we can. Cards in foil tend to sometimes give a little bit of glare, but we will try our best here. But yeah, here we are with Universes Beyond Assassin's Creed. I've gone on record before, if you have watched our podcast episode covering this booster set, that I'm a big fan of this franchise. I have not been long-term enfranchised past Black Flag, unfortunately. Just console limitations and just sort of falling off on the franchise. But I have been a big fan of the classics, everything that was part of the original series, and then I guess pretty much up until the end of Desmond's story, pretty much is where I've played before. And I really am a fan of it. And these cards are really, really cool. We've got a lot of commander hits to go through, so we should probably get started. Lydia Fry, 2 and Hybrid Dimir for a 3/2 legendary human assassin. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater, and at the beginning of your end step, surveil X, where X is the number of tapped assassins you control. I'm gonna try my best to try to pinpoint where these characters are from, but like I said, I don't really know a lot past Black Flag, so please forgive me if I do incorrect. I'd love to hear in the comments of you recognize any of these characters and which games they appear from. I would assume this is the London one, which I think is Unity, based on the artwork here. As for the card itself, allows a smaller, at least herself anyway, allows smaller power creatures to creep their way through past anything that has a larger power, so that's always great. The ability doesn't go away if her own power has gotten bigger or whatnot, so this is a fantastic target for things like equipment and auras and power boosting effects like that, because things with larger power just simply can't block it. And then so now they have to have little creatures for chump blocking if that comes down to it. And the surveilling factor that she does is also quite nice. Calls to Piracy. Now, I know this is a reprint that is in this booster set. 2 and double blue for an enchantment. When a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Works well with this previous legendary that we just opened here. These effects are great. We have better than I'd say this one, honestly. There's things like Reconnaissance Mission and the Indomitable from that one Ixalan commander deck, and Bident of Thassa, and Toski if you're in a different color combination. But If you're in blue, this is kind of the classic. Really, really well. Works good with little dorks, works well with unblockable. Yeah, you couldn't go wrong with that. It's a pretty good one. Monastery Raid. 2 and a red for a sorcery. It has free running for X and a red. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. If this spell free running cast was paid, exile the top X of your library instead. You may play the exiled cards until the end of your next turn. Free running is a new keyword mechanic that comes in this booster set. It says that you can cast the spell for its free running cost if you have dealt combat damage to a player this turn with an assassin or a commander. And that's very crucial, very important in determining if this mechanic is any good or not. I think the best cards that offer free running as potential options for your commander deck is going to be within the colors that your commander especially is either evasive or is always attacking. That's going to be a big determining factor of if you can get your commander down early, if you can get it to stick, and they're constantly able to do combat damage. Because the thing with combat damage related mechanics is you're doing combat damage to your opponents. So that is actively moving the game forward. So these kind of mechanics that work off of that kind of thing, you have to make sure you're not like killing everybody too terribly fast, but you always have the option to swing if need be. And that's the determiner if these things are good or not. As for this card itself, impulse draw if you can't free run it, and then a flexible impulse draw if you can. It's fine. Prosper probably wants something like that, and all the other kinds of decks that play like Prosper. If you're playing from exile, you probably are playing something like this anyway. Oh boy, here we go. More names. Arbazmir? Arbazmir. I'm gonna stick with that and try our best from there. Red-white for a legendary creature human assassin is a 2/2. When Arbaz or another non-token historic permanent enters the battlefield under your control, Arbaz deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. Ooh, yeah, now this could be something you could try to set up a very interesting, like this reads combo-y, right? Outside of combo related stuff, this is rewarding you for playing historic permanents, which since it's not on this card itself, historic is legendaries, artifacts, and sagas. And probably what reads the best with something like this would be artifacts. Especially within these colors, Boros is very, very strong with equipment. So this now reads every time you have a non-token equipment enter the battlefield, you get to ping everybody for a damage, and you gain a life. That's really, really cool. You see, like, big finishers in regular red and green and white decks and things like that. Things like Impact Tremors and Witty Roastmaster and the new War Leader's Call from Murder Sokolov Manor, the Boros colored one that is also a Glorious Anthem, that one. These kind of effects are always finishers in a variety of strategies, because as soon as you have a setup going where either a lot of things or the same thing in and out perpetually, that just gives you the win. So if you can, within these colors, especially artifacts, there is very high amounts of artifact loops that you can do either from your hand or from the graveyard. This is a very cheap commander that you could get down that would be able to help you close out a game very fast. This would be your out. A very interesting etched foil here. Phantom Blade. I believe that's etched. Yeah, it's the darker around there. 4 and a black for an equipment. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to up to 1 target creature you control. Destroy up to 1 other target creature. The equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has menace, and it equips for 2. The biggest problem with this is that it is sorcery speed. Without any extra help, this thing doesn't have flash by itself, so you're paying 5 mana to give something of yours +1/+1 menace and blow up a creature. It's neat that it's an equipment, so if you're doing an equipment style strategy and you're looking for an equipment that can act as removal, that's neat, but I don't know if that's good. Yeah, I'm sure it has purpose somewhere, and it's really hard to see with this frame, but the card is black, so you are limited to black decks that are doing equipment as well, which, like we talked about, Boros is usually the strongest color for equipment strategies. We got a very nice foil borderless island here. I would assume with the Poseidon Triton thingy, this is from Odyssey. Yeah, Odyssey is the Greek myth plane one. Not Greek myth plane, Greek myth inspired world for Assassin's Creed. Aya? We're gonna go with Aya. Aya of Alexandria. I couldn't tell you which one this is. Maybe Mirage, or I could be wrong on that too. 2 red and a white for a legendary 4/3 human assassin. There's a lot of assassins in this set, in case you have not noticed. Menace, lifelink. Whenever a historic creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Menace. Very cool. A historic creature then, like we talked about, meaning one that's legendary. It's kind of strange that it doesn't say when a legendary creature you control, because I guess maybe if you like animated an artifact that wasn't legendary, then I guess it'd be considered historic as well. A saga turned online would also do it as well. A planeswalker swinging. But you're probably going to be getting in mostly with legendary creatures with this, and that's really neat. This is templated in such a way that if you are striking multiple of your opponents at the same time, each one of them will create you an assassin token, so that's a really good way to stretch out the board state, I suppose. You're trying to go wide. Myriad related stuff, combat centric related decks. We had that whole Outlaws deck from Thunder Junction last that was a very combat centered thing, so you could like maybe find stuff from that and throw that into a strategy together of like hitting a bunch of people all at once and making a whole bunch of assassins. Ooh! Now, I'm sure this would be something Joseph would be very interested in, as he has just finished assembling a Edward Kenway Pirates and Boats deck here. We've got ourselves an extended art of Jackdaw, which I believe is Edward's boat from the game. 1 blue and a red, legendary vehicle. It's a 4/4, cruise for 3, and when Jackdaw deals combat damage to a player, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each artifact you control. By itself, it counts as 1, and if you're doing a treasures theme, or you have a bunch of artifact creatures, or maybe even artifact lands would probably work really well with something like this. You play this into a artifact-centric deck, and if you have a bunch of lands that are already artifacts as well, this is something that would allow you to dump your hand and refill based on everything you have, and certainly throwing artifacts into the graveyard is not a downside. This can sometimes read as a downside, but refilling yourself up based on just the number of artifacts you have, non-token or token, that's pretty wild. It's a pretty good piece. Hey, speaking of Desmond, we were just talking about him. This is Desmond Miles. 1 and a black for a 1/3 legendary human assassin with Menace. Desmond gets 1/0 for each other assassin you control and each assassin card in your graveyard. And when Desmond deals combat damage to a player, surveil X, where X is the amount of damage it dealt to that player. Desmond, well, he looks a little strange here as compared to all these other historical looking cards here. Desmond is considered your main protagonist character, at least over the span of the first 3 and its subsidiary games, like the Ezio trilogy. You are watching these histories unfold through him. The characters of Altair and Ezio and Connor, they're all of his previous lineage in the past, and so you're sat in the Animus during those games, technically in Desmond's mind area, I guess, the history, genes, whatever, however it's all explained in the games. I don't know. It got a little confusing pretty later on. But the point is, though, is that he's your main person you're following in the present day through most of the original span of games. As for Desmond's card here himself, this is reflected here in the ability that he has, that as he is watching these histories of his past lives, he is gaining more knowledge. And so the equal to your team that you already have down in play, or anything else that has already gone to your graveyard, the past, he gets stronger. And also works with Surveil, which then puts more creatures into your graveyard, so he can get very, very high on his power and toughness very quickly. I like that a lot. I wouldn't say it is incredible, but it's pretty neat. Oh, I think this is a mythic. Yeah, that is a mythic here, and we have an etched, it's etched foil here as well. Ivor Wolf-Kissed. 3, red, green, white. Legendary human assassin warrior. It's a 7/6. Woof, big. Trample, haste, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you mill that many cards. You may put a saga and or a land from among them onto the battlefield. Wow, what a way to cheat some mana cost down. This reads kind of like, and funny enough, it's in the same colors. It reminds me of Gishath, where you are milling yourself, or in the, like, from Gishath's case, you're revealing, but in the case of this one, you are milling cards equal to the amount of damage you end up doing, and you get free stuff then back out of your graveyard. Cheating mana costs is one of the #1 things that you can do with Commander to stay ahead of everyone else at the table, because if you're contending with 3 other people, the chances are that, like, you can get smashed in by creature damage essentially 3 times as fast, because you have other people to work with. So cards like these, even though that this is a 6 mana to get down, you've got green, so you playing your mana ramp related things, and you can play the mana ramp cards that are sagas or lands that are going to your graveyard. So fetch lands like Bertha Meletis. There's another white one that fetches you out plains. I think there's the Mending of Dominaria, I believe, puts lands into your graveyard as well, and then you reanimate it with this, and it's like, oh man, this is super cool. If you're already playing sagas as a commander strategy, this fits right into the 99 of that super well. And then the back of our pack is a foil assassin token and a foil treasure token. So this is a very interesting one as far as picking the actual cards that I would throw into a commander deck. And again, we have less choice to work with here. However, less choice as far as card count. However, card quality, man, I don't know. There's really a home for almost everything here. But limiting myself to just a few, I really like this Ivor. Honestly, right? You play your sagas, you recur those sagas. It just seems really, really neat. I didn't have one here. I opened a previous bundle a little while ago, and I have also opened Javi, the Allfather, who kind of also cares about your legends and historic permanents and things like that. So the two of them here together is Javi is caring about your legendary creatures, and then Ivor is caring about the sagas that you're telling, and you're doing this whole big recursion thing of getting all of them back out of your graveyard all the time. You'd have a very unstoppable killing machine, I would assume. It would be a really, really cool deck. Coastal Piracy is also just good, right? Just card draw off of connecting with your creatures is superb. And we talked about Jackdaw as well, right? Of any amount of artifacts you've got, if you can get swinging with this guy, if you can get it in for combat damage, you can just refill your hand, send anything you want into the graveyard, give yourself a huge boost in card advantage just for swinging in with one thing, depending what you got. Super in a treasure strategy, super in any previously established artifact thing. Oh, with Brutaclad, I just thought with Brutaclad, you're doing your mirror tokens every turn, and then you're dumping them into the graveyard, and then crewing this and drawing everything. That sounds so cool. I'm a big fan of this, but honestly, I would probably maybe other than some of these black cards here, unironically, I think there's a great spot for almost every single one of these pieces here, which is one of the great benefits of these smaller booster sets like what they're doing here with this Universes Beyond one. That brings us to the end of this episode of Pack It In. I hope you have enjoyed watching this one. Let me know down below of your favorite Assassin's Creed game. I'd love to get a conversation going about that and what I've been missing over the last couple of years. I'd really like to find out which ones have been good over the last decade, I guess, and maybe I'll find a new one to jump into. So thank you very much for being here. I always appreciate all of you here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Pack It In.